In late 2025, the Twin Cities became the staging ground for the largest domestic immigration enforcement operation in U.S. history. Thousands of armed and masked federal agents poured into Minneapolis and St. Paul. This was Operation Metro Surge, a heavily militarized sweep through suburban neighborhoods and city streets. The fallout was severe. Agents in tactical gear routinely stopped residents, demanding proof of citizenship. The local economy lost tens of millions of dollars in a matter of weeks, and the operation culminated in the fatal shootings of 2 U.S. citizens. To understand how a federal agency obtained the authority and the firepower to effectively invade an American metropolitan area, we have to look at how that agency was built. Following the attacks of September 11th, the U.S. government completely restructured its approach to national security. In November 2002, Congress passed the Homeland Security Act, triggering the largest reorganization of the federal government since the 1940s. By March 2003, this new structure officially opened its doors, giving rise to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. Its original mission focused heavily on preventing cross-border crime and stopping terror threats within the United States. To do that, lawmakers gave the agency a unique hybrid structure, combining civil immigration authority with heavy-duty criminal law enforcement powers. It was an institution built strictly through a security lens, rather than a humanitarian or economic one, a framework that would soon stretch to cover everyday domestic enforcement. Over the next 2 decades, that security mandate steadily expanded. The Bush administration invoked national security to authorize sweeping, high-visibility worksite raids. Then, the Obama administration implemented Secure Communities, a program that automatically shared fingerprint data from local jails. This automated system caused deportation numbers to skyrocket. This graphic shows how the internal metrics for success shifted. Agents were no longer primarily evaluated on taking down specific, complex threats, but on the raw number of removals they could process. By the second Trump administration, the strategy widened completely. The executive branch directed ICE to target all undocumented immigrants, deploying border personnel into the interior of the country to meet massive deportation quotas. Over 20 years, a specialized investigative unit had evolved into a sweeping domestic police force. This escalation accelerated under Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, who mobilized ICE as a highly visible, militarized force in cities from Los Angeles to Chicago. But the operational mechanics behind these urban raids remained hidden until January 2026, when an anonymous whistleblower released a secretive internal policy directive. The disclosure centered on the May 12 memo, signed by Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons. It explicitly authorized agents to forcibly enter people's homes to make arrests without a judicial warrant. A judicial warrant requires an independent judge to review evidence before entering a residence, but an administrative warrant is simply signed by an ICE officer. The May 12 memo told agents to use these documents to bypass the Fourth Amendment and enter homes without consent. On the ground, this meant groups of masked personnel in tactical gear could approach a residential address and force their way inside entirely on their own authority. By allowing immigration officers to act as their own judges, the agency systematically dismantled the traditional constitutional constraints protecting the American home. The events in Minnesota were not a random accident. They were the mathematical result of expanding legal authority colliding with a massive militarized deployment. The civilian deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy generated intense public outcry. The resulting political pressure forced a sudden shakeup in the Department of Homeland Security's leadership. The administration dispatched Border Czar Tom Homan to take control of the operation and pivot the agency's strategy. Homan halted the roving, high-visibility urban sweeps. Instead, he directed agents to take custody of undocumented immigrants directly from local jails, a tactic he labeled smart law enforcement that pulled thousands of federal personnel off the streets. The rapid deployment and sudden withdrawal of these forces reveals an uncomfortable truth. ICE is not a broken agency acting outside its design. It is functioning exactly as its legal architecture permits. The boundary between border security and domestic paramilitarism has been erased because the law was written to let it happen.